Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast, the podcast designed to challenge you to break the mold that average has on the world. Each episode offers insights directly from those who choose to break average every day. Now for the latest insights, here are your hosts, Paul Gustafson and Barry Smith.
Welcome to the Breaking Average podcast. I'm excited again. Barry, here we are, man. We're diving into the greatest sports moments that made an impact in our lives and others. And this is going to be a good one, huh?
Right back at it, man. I'm looking forward to it. Another good one on the list.
I got a question for you, Barry.
Okay, Paul, go ahead. Ask your question.
Do you believe in miracles?
Ooh. Well, I would have to say ever since 1980, I think maybe I've believed in miracles. That was a turning point. I was about 15 years old, and I think yeah, I believe in miracles.
Yeah, man. A young Al Michaels calling the game in 1980, Lake Placid, U.S. I mean, the whole world, at least all of my friends, are watching 1980 Olympic hockey. And these guys, I don't know, they look like they had their chances months and months beforehand, like, okay, maybe we can do this. Here's what's interesting. Herb Brooks was the coach, and he coached, I believe, at Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, and he won the championship in 1979. And I love this part of the story of the Olympics because it's an amateur sport, at least for Americans at that time.
Yep.
The Soviets and some of the other teams, they were not amateurs.
They weren't amateurs in a lot of different sports.
That's right. These guys are the best of their country, and we're putting out college kids.
Yep.
Putting them out there to represent good old US of A. So Herb Brooks, Golden Gophers coach, wins it in 79, gets the tag, which is good for him because he could have been on the last time the U.S. Olympic hockey team, I believe, who last time they won it before then was 1960. And Herb Brooks was supposed to be on that team, and he missed the cut. He was the last cut before that gold medal team.
Did not know that.
So he never made it. So this is he gets a chance. He gets an opportunity here, and he's coaching, and he's obviously doing a great job at the collegiate level. And he's having a hard time. If you watch the movie, and I think this is true, hard time trying to pick these guys. Yeah. And he worked them. But he picked, I think, 12 of them or 7 of them were on his team from college.
Yeah, there were a bunch.
12 of them from the state of Minnesota. So he picked up local guys, those that he knew. And, there's a lesson in that when you think about it. But weeks right before the game start, they do a warm-up game. Who do they play? The Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't go too well, did it?
No, it did not.
So I'll let you add bits and pieces to the story, but I just wanted to at least tee that up. Like Herb Brooks, he was down and out. Now, he had played on the Olympic teams following 64, 68, and I think they got a silver out of that. But he never got that gold, and this was his opportunity.
It was, and he's an interesting character if you really dig on him. Great college coach, but he changed. He stepped himself up a notch when he started coaching the Olympic team. Even the process he went through, just like you're saying, selecting these kids, and they were kids, average age of 21. It's like the youngest hockey team, I think, still that we ever put on the ice. Mm-hmm. And, who were they to come in here and take on the big bad Soviets? I think, like you said, first exhibition game, that didn't go too well for them. Now they did come back. They did adjust their mindset a little bit. But some of the things that most people don't know about Brooks choosing those guys, he had, as they were getting closer to the date, picking the final 20, he was 26. He had 26 on the list. And as he kind of, went through, how do I pick my 20? One of the things he did gave him a 300 question test. I don't know if you know this, Mr. Paul Gustafson. 300 question test to really see how they would perform under pressure. And that was one of the big tools he used in choosing his team. And he's got a lot of great quotes that came out of that experience and what he did with that Olympic team. But it was interesting that, he really held to the people, not so much the talent. In fact, I think somewhere in the mix, he said, look, talent isn't enough, and you guys don't have enough talent anyway. So you gotta dig deeper. You gotta really dig into who you are if you want to do this. And it was a journey. And he was a unique character, just the way he coached. And, he had a lot of quotes and a lot of different ways that, he incorporated into the way he led the team, his leadership style. And a lot of the guys were just confused. I mean, again, these are young kids, man. And they were just like, what?
Yep.
But they believed, right? At the end of the day, they all believed in themselves. He definitely believed in him. We were watching a clip, you and I, just before we kind of got rolling here. And he instilled it in them. He inspired them. He said, this is yours to take. And somehow, some way, I mean, yes, we know it now as a miracle on ice. But to me, it really wasn't. We can call it that and we get it. But it wasn't a miracle, man. It was 20 kids and a coach and his coaching staff. But it was a group of individuals who came together as a team, right? And just all found that extra gear, and just unbelievable. And you just look at the way they did it. Russia, they were behind. Finland for the championship, for the gold, they were behind. They were behind almost all the time. And yet they would come back and get it done. And man, you talk about mindset, which seems to be kind of our topic that we keep rolling in and out of. But man, these guys found something, and interesting that you fast forward it all. Only 13 of those 20 went into the NHL. Now, some of them had some pretty prolific careers as professional hockey players. But even Eruzione, one of the heroes of the Olympics, never played professional hockey. He just said, hey, look, man, I've done it. I've got to the top of the mountain. I don't need any more. This is everything for me. So it was an interesting group of characters that were there in that game.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. I love how the team comes together and they face the adversity early on during the tryouts, the practices. When I coached high school soccer, I would tell the guys, and I was really pulling from Herb Brooks. I was doing my best Herb Brooks. And one of the things I would tell them, I said, fatigue is an enemy we will not lose to.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's a Herb Brooks quote or not, but that was the mindset that he had, right?
So did you make him run? Did you make him run Herbies? What'd you call them? Pollies?
No, we would just run. I mean, we would make sure that we put 20 minutes of our run in. I wanted everybody to put in a 5K early on in the season. I'm like, we got to get in shape. Look, we got a long season ahead of us, and how we prepare for the rest of the season is dependent upon what we do right now. Yeah. And if we're feeling fatigue, we got to deal with it now, not later.
That's interesting you bring that up, because that was another Herb Brooks thing, how we prepare, right? Because for those that kind of followed hockey back then or followed hockey at all and kind of know the story, Europe, the Russians, they all played a little more physical game. And Brooks knew that. Everybody knew that. And so when they were practicing, he said, no, guys, no, we're going to have some contact in here. You guys got to get ready for this. This is a war. And you got to be able to physically compete with these guys, not just mentally. And well, we know the result. But you just think about kids that age and just, wow, man, that's just what an amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, he taught them practice like you play, right? You just can't take practice. You can't do the Allen Iverson approach. Practice. No, you practice. How you show up at practice is how you're going to show up on game day.
Yeah.
And you can take any sport, Barry, and you see that translate. Like, okay, how do they practice that week? Because how they practice that week before game day, it's going to tell you everything.
Yeah. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah. So I think it's so key. And it really was a miracle, though, when you think about it. But here's the truth, right? So Al Michaels, miracle on ice. Do you believe in miracles? All that, right? And we've heard that probably a gazillion times. But think about this. You said the word earlier, belief.
Yeah.
You can't have miracles without belief.
Yeah.
Miracles start with belief. And when you believe in something and you pursue it, when he says 9 out of 10 times we may not win this, but not tonight, boys. Tonight is our night. You are meant to be here. You were meant to be here. And that same mantra, that same theme, that same echo is what I hear, is what I want everybody to hear. It's what I want you to hear. Barry, you were meant to be here. This time is now, is yours. This time now is yours, man. And so that's the opportunity. Whatever challenge we face, because it's intimidating. You got a lot of noise, you got a lot of cameras, you got the world watching. The great Soviets, you lost to them in the exhibition. That's a lot. But when he puts that,
and you're playing on home ice.
Home ice, it's tough. It's a tough environment, but belief makes all the difference. And that's what he did. If you watch that clip, and by the way, let's talk about Kurt Russell, man. Did he do a great job or what in the movie?
He did. I got so, I have so much appreciation for many of the actors and actresses that are out there today, just to watch the different roles they've played. Man, this could be maybe a teaser for a future podcast series, right? Talking about some of our favorites. But just think about all the different roles. I mean, we don't have to go into them that Kurt Russell played, but to play this, this idiosyncratic guy wearing, goofy clothes. Of course, that back in the 80s, that was in, but you just look at him and just the way his mannerisms and actually there was, there's you go out in Google world and how accurate is the movie, right? How accurate it is. And actually Hollywood and all the critics have said this is one of the most historically accurate movies ever done, sports movies ever done. And so, you look at some of the stuff and some of the dialogue in there. They actually had Al Michaels in much of the movie recreate,
yep,
verbatim some of the stuff, but they did not do that for that final call. They just didn't feel like he could recreate that emotion in actor mode. And so they actually used the original audio clip from that Do You Believe in Miracles and the countdown and just all the stuff that goes in that to bring a story like this to life. I think there's still people that believe they watched it live, even though they tape delayed it.
It was a tape delay. That was what's funny. Like we all now I'm wondering that
you couldn't do it today.
The Soviet game, I'm wondering if that was I can't remember. It just felt live, right? So it was just incredible. What a great experience for everybody, whether you were there in the arena. Can you imagine that, though, Barry?
No.
Being there, seeing that, experiencing
part of that. Just, history. No, just something you would definitely never forget. And that's what we're talking about, right? Even though we weren't there live, we were watching it on TV, and man, those are moments that just live in infamy. You know, and then when you dig it, when you realize it, now obviously we were young back then, clearly
13. I was 13
and 15. So it's kind of that excitement of the day. You don't really realize all the other stuff that goes into it, right? It's a game, it's competition, it's your home country. And by the way, we'll realize our entire audience is not USA Americans here, right?
Yeah.
So listen, jump in, tell us your favorite Olympic stories or your home country. I'd love to hear some of those because look, there's some fantastic stories from other athletes that are not Americans. Good grief. We could go down that list forever. But, especially if you were in your home country, watching, or the Olympics were in your home country, or maybe you were live there, would love to hear some of those stories. But, we've been talking about the last couple episodes, about unity and teamwork and things like that. Man, the Olympics, there's the platform. You want to talk about not just unifying as a team, but bringing countries together. What was it? And I forget which Olympics, but when South and North Korea marched in together, I know there's still some issues over there, but just things like that. It's a platform that allows for those type of things to take place and actually can make a difference, and it was interesting. I'll try and forgetting. There's another story. It was Jesse Owens actually became friends with a German Olympian that competed against. So just things, and that was when 36, just coming up on World War II, everything going on in Germany, and here he befriends, one of his German competitors. So when you take the playing field, whether it's professional, college, youth, the Olympics, it's a different world. Everything else kind of seems to go away, and it's just a place where people can be people. And man, it's a beautiful thing. Love watching the Olympics. There's just something special about it.
Yeah, there is something special about the Olympics. And I remember as a kid being fascinated by this whole platform, the Olympics, and just, daydreaming as a kid, drawing those 5 circles, the Olympic symbology. Yeah. And I love the mindset that they try to instill in the athletes from the beginning, right? The Olympic oath and the Olympic creed, right? So the Olympic creed says the important thing in life is not the triumph, but the fight. The essential thing is not to have won, but to have fought well.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
I think let's save an expansion of that for our next episode, because that plays right into it.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about, I know we have another Olympic session here that we're going to do on the 36 games. You've already brought up, Jesse. And there's several components to just that. So we're talking about one specific team, the 1980 Olympic hockey team, how they came together. Talk about coming together and breaking average, right?
Wow, for real.
These guys weren't supposed to be there. Some of these were amateurs, right?
That's true.
And like you said, not all of them made it into the NHL. And, they had a decent goalie, Jim Craig, right? I loved his mask. He looked like Freddy Krueger or whatever. I can't remember what it was.
And that was not Brooks's goalie.
It was not. It was sort of a plug-in, right?
It's just what Herb Brooks did with that team, and he could have, his goalie got him the championship, right? And yet when he's putting together the Olympic team, he says, no, this is going to require a different group of kids, and just to go out and choose them and want diversity in there as far as, where they're from and their background and their personalities. And he just, he picked the right team. But that goes well beyond just, picking the guys with the stats. And man, talk about leadership. Herb Brooks, you the man.
Yeah. No, it's a powerful story. All right. So here's what we're going to encourage you to do. If you haven't seen Disney's Miracle, or even if you have, go watch it again. Even if it's summertime, springtime, whatever time you're watching this, go watch it. It's pretty cool. Kurt Russell, top of his game in terms of how he just portrays Herb Brooks, the representation of all those players. And it's something there for all of us to learn from. So be inspired by it, be encouraged by it. But let's just dive into a tip and challenge out of that whole experience. I mean, we're 13 years old, and that still inspires us. Think about that, Barry.
No
all
doubt.
These years. I feel bad that folks didn't see it, but I'm telling you, go watch the movie. You'll still be inspired. But just recognize that there are those moments in our life that inspire us later in life. And I mean, that was a chunk of change when you think about it. That was a long time ago.
It was. And I'll tell you, as we get into the tip and challenge, I want to set that up with 3 quotes from Brooks, right? Okay. And see, Mr. Gustafson, if you can find a theme that has been a previous theme of these podcasts that you and I have talked about. But just listen to these for a minute. These are all from Herb Brooks.
Okay, I'm ready.
Number 1, my recruiting key. I look for people first, athletes second. I wanted people with a sound value system, as you cannot buy values. You're only as good as your values. I learned early on that you do not put greatness into people, but somehow try and pull it out.
Ooh.
That was number 1. Number 2.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Hold on. Let me just let that resonate. That's good stuff.
Let that soak in, man.
That's good. What was that last line you just said out of that quote?
I learned early on that you do not put greatness into people, but somehow try to pull it out.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay. You ready?
All right. Yeah,
Number
man,
two.
you could have stopped right there and you've already won me, man. That's good. You had me at a
All
hello.
right. Number
That's
two,
good.
you win with people, not with talent. So the quality of the people is very important in building your team. Always look for people with a solid value system. Then I recruited kids from a cross section of different personalities, talents, and styles of play. Okay, so you picking up on a little theme here.
Yep. I'm good.
Third one. Success is won by those who believe in winning and then prepare for that moment. Many want to win, but how many prepare? That is the big difference. A sound value system held water then, holds water today, and will hold water in the future.
Cool, man.
Herb Brooks. Herb Brooks.
Yeah, you nail a couple of things. So here's what pops for me as you share that. Obviously, people matter. Number one, building what matters, people. Right. That's your business. That's what you do. That's what you're all about. Finding those people. How do you find those people that you're going to build? Well, look at their values.
Yeah.
If the values aren't there, not a solid foundation to build off, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Bible talks about don't build your foundation on sinking sand. You got to find that foundation.
Keyword foundation right there.
Yep. So values. And then belief, right? So people want to win, but do they believe they can win? Right? Belief. This is the Ted Lasso thing that I mentioned the other day, right? You got to have that belief sign there. You got to believe, and that's what he didn't want those guys to go out on the ice against the Russians, the Soviets, until they believed.
Yeah.
Right. And we all believed. It wasn't just the hockey team. We like, holy cow, they could really do this.
Yeah.
So that was pretty powerful. Yeah, those are the things that pop for me. And I would say this: you can't get to vision unless you start with values.
Bingo.
Right. So when you cast a vision as big as it is to win the Olympic championship as a hockey team, that's a big vision. And you've got to have the values to start. Because if you don't have those values, the vision, you're going to fall short of the vision.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great segue right into I wanted to set that up for the tip and challenge. And that's basically it. You captured it, right? Even that the foundation you have in whatever you do and whoever you are is going to be built around your value system. And Herb Brooks, look, I think, I don't know what those 300 questions were, but I'm sure there was a lot of values questions in there. And if you really think about it, your values, my values, that's our foundation of who we are.
Yeah.
And who we are is going to produce what we do, obviously. Right. And so, there's the tip, right? The foundation of who you are is going to be built around your value system. And the challenge is, take a look at that. If you don't know your values, go through a values exercise. And if you do know, if you've gone through an exercise and you know what your values are, I challenge you to live into them a little bit more. Man, I think about times when I kind of fall short on my value system, and it's like, blew that one. We all do it. But man, when you're living within your system, the system that you believe that really represents who you are, man, it just gives you that strength, to push through the tough times, to add value to others, to become a better version of yourself. So figure out what your values are, and they're different for everyone, but live into them. I'd really challenge everybody, really, really live into your value system. Put them up on the wall. Know what they are. I'm staring you in the face, because it's easy for any of us to get distracted, go through a tough time. Man, life happens to all of us, and we can kind of forget what we're built upon, right?
Yeah.
So go out there and live into your values, everybody. How about you, Mr. G?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to pull on a couple of thoughts that you just shared, and I'll get to a tip and challenge from that. But think about who they were going against. These, again, we've already mentioned it. These guys were tough opponents, and they didn't catch. Look, I've played competitive sports, and I know what it's like when you're going against another team that's better on paper, anticipated to win. They've got the same vision, by the way. They want to win it too.
Sure.
Well, what's the differentiator between that? It's back to your values. It's back to your values. So what happens in that game is that there's the tug on the shirt, there's the push, there's the slap that the ref doesn't see, right? There are things that are there that they're trying to aggravate them. You're being tested on your values every single day. You're only as good as your values. Are you value strong? That's the question. That's what Herb Brooks was looking for in his players. That's what any of us should look for ourselves. Are we value strong? Because that hockey stick's going to come out of nowhere trying to trip you up.
Yeah,
it's going to happen. And you may have a great vision, but if you don't have values, values that to build on to get to that vision. And so I would just encourage you with that. I just love what you had to say. I would say this too. You're either a player. We talked about this the other day. You're either a player, you're a critic, you're a spectator, or you're a coach.
Ooh, I like that. We didn't talk about coach the other day. I like that.
No, yeah, I'm adding this to it.
Yeah.
You're either a player, a spectator, a critic, or a coach. You get to choose. Each of us get to choose. And there may be moments, there may be Herb Brooks moments where you didn't make the 1960 Olympic gold medal team, but you got to get back up because you still have values. You have a vision. You don't have to put the skates on. You just might be the guy that takes somebody else there. And let me tell you, Herb Brooks, when he and that team won that championship, I'm telling you, he probably felt 10 times greater than he would have when he was a young kid in the on the 1960 team if he had been part of that team.
I'm sure. He stood there and watched them skating around the ice.
Yeah.
And actually went back into the locker room and just broke down, started crying. What an emotional moment for him. And if you think about it, you pointed out that it was 20 years prior before the U.S. really did anything with the hockey. Yeah. And it was another 10 years after that before they did anything else. I mean, the Soviets pretty much ran that 30-year run with the exception of the Miracle Team, Herb Brooks's Miracle Team.
Yeah.
They owned it.
Yeah. So own your values, but be that person that can encourage others.
Yeah.
Build that team around you. Be the guide, right? That's the beauty of this story is the Herb Brooks story.
Yeah.
Because some of those players, that was it for them.
Yeah.
Herb Brooks, I mean, he continued on, right? So his 1960 disappointment of not making the Olympic team, he went on and made the Olympic team the next 2 years. They didn't win the gold then, but then he became that coach and he took him to the gold. Be growth minded. So that's an element. That's sort of what I'm seeing out of this is like, wow, here we are, man. We can be the critic, we can be the spectators, or we can be the player, but maybe we can be the coach and mentor and make an impact and add value that lasts. I mean, we still talk about it. So anyway, that's my tip and challenge.
I love it.
This is so much fun, man.
No, I mean, there's just the stories that come out of it. I mean, I'm having fun just getting ready for the calls. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. And it's like, hey, man, what about this? And how can we weave this in sometime? And it's just so many, again, in a challenging time, not just a pandemic, but this is a challenging time. The world just moves at light speed and there's so much noise and clutter everywhere. And you go back, like we were talking about earlier when, it was actually tape delayed and it was actually the Soviets. They wanted to play at prime time And the Soviets said, no, we'll be doing like 4 a.m. or something. We're not doing that. And so they tape delayed it. And even Al Michaels, when he came on, said, okay, this is tape delayed. And people just didn't get it. But you couldn't even do that today, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
It doesn't make, everything's happening in real time today.
Yeah.
So it's just different. And man, those stories are going to be harder and harder to come by. Everything's so competitive. Everything, it's just different now, and so I love what we're doing right now with these stories and going back. And I know we're going to go back even further on a couple of them. Those are gone. And I love doing this because we can kind of bring some of these things back to life and remind people, right? Especially the younger generation that weren't even around, they were exposed to it in the movie when it came out.
Yeah.
They weren't there watching it live, right. So it's a lot of fun just to go back to yesteryear a little bit and appreciate, to a certain extent, the way things used to be, man, the simplicity of the way things were back in the day.
Yeah. And
sometimes I miss that.
Yeah. And there are two more things to kind of think about, Barry, as you were sharing. It just occurred to me. What was happening in 1980 at that time? There was two things that were happening on the other side of the world. There was an Iranian hostage crisis that was happening.
President, that's right.
And the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Wow.
All right. So think about what's at play here. I mean, it's a hockey game, but think about what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
They say that this Miracle on Ice was the #1 sports moment of the 20th century.
Of the decade. That's
Yeah, I saw it somewhere that was of the century. Either way, it's one of the. It's in our top 10, man.
Yes. This and then when Sports, I found this interesting. When Sports Illustrated came out, no caption.
Yeah,
the picture of the team because everybody knew what happened.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a great moment, right, where you see the jerseys coming off, the flags flying down, just the. Whew.
And they weren't done yet. They had to go back 2 days later
and beat Finland.
And they were down again.
Yeah.
2-1 at the end of the second period and came back with 3 goals in the third period. And Herb got right in the middle of them between the second and third period.
That's right. He said, look, you've come this far. I don't know what he said exactly, but this is what I imagine. You've come this far. You beat those guys and you're here and you're laying an egg. Don't you believe that you can win this too?
So here's what he did say, and I'll leave the expletive out. But he said, if you guys lose this game, you're going to take it to your grave.
Ooh. Yeah.
Now think about that for a minute. In other words, you're going to carry that till the day you die. Obviously, that lit somebody up.
It did.
Because they came out and, but it was just a great story. Another one, we can wrap this thing up, but I'm just thinking about, what I learned about it. And when they went up 4-3 on the Soviets, where traditional coaching might say, okay, now let's play some prevent D.
Deep, yep.
They did not change. They stayed on the attack. They did Craig did a great job in the net. I mean, the Soviets came right back, put one off the post. I mean, this game was over. They were saying for many Americans, that was the toughest 10 minutes of their entire life.
It was,
there was 10 minutes left in the game when they went up 4-3.
It was.
That's forever, dude.
Moment.
10 minutes is forever in a hockey game.
Yeah, that's true.
Good stuff.
Guys, man, thank you for just tuning in and listening to this as we talk hockey right here in the front end of spring. It's warming up wherever you're at, probably, and we're talking Miracle on Ice. But truth of it is, if you tune in, I'm sure there's a little bit of hockey left in the NHL season right now, so enjoy that. But just recognize the opportunity that's right in front of you. Find what it is that you believe in, find those values, find others around you with values, and boy,
good stuff.
Yeah. You can accomplish more together than you can alone.
There you go. Always.
All right, Barry. This is awesome. Thanks, man.
You got it. Take care, everybody.
We'll see you.
Thank Thank you for listening to the Breaking Average podcast. If you loved what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe. This show was produced by R Squared Multimedia. All opinions and comments expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or views of any of the advertisers, producers, or platforms. As you continue your day, what is one action that you can apply from this podcast to your life? Tune in for our next episode as we continue to challenge everyone to break average.
Good one. All right. So, okay. So we hit one that was a double. We hit one that was a triple. What was that one?
Yeah, I think that's right there. It was a double. It was a tight double. Sliding. Had to slide head first coming in.
My concern is, like you and I, we lived that moment. So that's cool. But for, half our audience, that was like such an old school memory. They don't.
But I think what I like about what we're doing is we bring things like values, like teamwork, like mindset, I think we're doing a good job bringing that into it. And you know what? If they don't resonate so much with it, I'm not worried about that. They'll resonate with a different one.
Yeah, that's right.
This series is not about connecting at a high level with everybody. I think this might bring some people in.
Yeah.
That maybe haven't been.
Yeah. All right. I agree with you, man. This is fun. I love doing this. I'm glad we picked sports as our thing.
And I think we should. Dig into some movies down the road, like you talked about once upon a time.
Yeah. And you're right about Miracle. It's definitely a little bit more accurate than some of the other ones. Like Remember the Titans. I love that movie, but I know the story's a little different than what actually happened. All right.
It's the life lessons, man.
Life lessons.